Let's get straight to it. 2008 Hyundai Sonata. This is a 3.3 liter engine. First thing I'm going to do is disconnect this negative battery terminal right here. Alright, so the first place I'm going to start is in the back here. So there's no reason to disconnect any of these harnesses. The trick around this is there's a 14 millimeter bolt right here on the back of here. If you can remove that 14 millimeter bolt, all this is attached to that. You can see this stuff is already moving around. Don't lose that bolt. So now all of that there is disconnected from our intake manifold. Up here, there's normally two bolts. There's one here and one here. This one's missing. So let's remove this bolt here real quick. So remember, it's one right there, and then once that's off, so now that whole thing is loose. We need to set that out of the way gently. So again, over here, all that's still connected. There's no reason to disconnect those. But this one over here, let's get this one off of here. All right, right here is two 10 millimeter bolts that's holding all of this on. So now that is off of there. Two more 10 millimeter bolts. Let's hit those. One down here as well. So now this is freed up from here. So we're done with this whole side over here. So now that this is out of the way, we can be able to maneuver this around better. So right here on the side, here is a tab. You need to get this. You press these two clips on the side, you can get that out. And then right up here is a 10 millimeter bolt. Let's get that out. All right, earlier we got this up. Let's get this harness off of here as well. All right, and then there's a hose clamp right here. You can use a pliers to get that off. I'm just gonna caveman it, just like that. And so we have this freed up over here on this side now. So on the back side here, there's a harness to be removed. You can press the clip on the bottom. I'm gonna get it off and show you what it looks like. You can press that clip and pull that off. So just press this clip right here and you can pull that harness off. So over here is two hose clamps to be removed. This one here is very easy. You can use a pliers to get that one off. And then there's one right here on the back side. You need to get that one off. You can use the same pliers to twist and turn this to loosen it. So now we can pull these off. That one. Okay, if you look right down here, there's normally a 10 millimeter bolt that's holding that in, right at the bottom of that throttle body. So you can see mine isn't there. Someone's already been down here to remove this stuff, you can tell, but yours is most likely still there. So in order to get this all the way off, you have to remove that 10 millimeter bolt that's normally down there. So back here on the back side of the motor, there's normally two 10 millimeter bolts to be removed. Someone's already taken this off, but yours is gonna have it. So make sure you disconnect those bolts from here to remove this refrigerant line out of your way. All right, so before we get these bolts off down here, so there's two bolts down here. There's one here and one here. So we need to get both of those bolts out because those bolts hold this this rail right here, and this rail is sitting above two of our bolts that need to be removed. So we need to remove that bolt right there and this bolt right here, and we can move this rail out of the way. All right, so since those are up, now this can move back and forth out of the way. Now we can access our two bolts on this side. So that's it. All the preparation is done, and it's time for us to get our intake manifold up. So there's 2 bolts right here, 10 millimeters. And if you move this back, there's 3 bolts down here. So there's one right there, one right here in the middle, and another one right over here. So that's 5 bolts in total. And then there's 2 nuts to remove. On the side here, there's 1 nut there. And on the side here, there's 1 nut there. So 5 bolts and 2 nuts. Let's get those removed. So I'm getting the 2 nuts out first. Then I'm going to get these 3 bolts at the bottom. And then the 2 up top. So you can use a piece of wire or something, and you can kind of get this out of your way, because it's going to want to keep coming back over here. So I'm going to take this and just softly hitch it to something so it doesn't go back that way. Now let me get this up now. Alright, so this is my setup here. I just put something soft here between this to hold it up. So if you look back here, there's two hose clamps to get off for this throttle body, and these are for the coolant lines. So the way I'm looking at it, it's not worth it for me to get these off. I have enough space here, so there's no reason for me to go through extra steps of getting those off in that tight space, losing coolant, and then having to reach back in that tight space to put those on. So I just put something soft right here in between the intake manifold and the top of the valve cover, and that way nothing gets damaged, and I'm able to hold this up without having this come back down on me. So I'm actually ready to work now. Okay, another little tip I like to do. So you can see in these cylinders here, I put some rags. These are actually shop towels, paper towels, and I use 6 for all 6 cylinders. That way nothing falls down in here while we're working. And I also made sure while putting it in that nothing accidentally knocked down there. Like for instance, you have some debris over here to the right. I made sure that none of that was gonna fall down in there as I'm putting my towels in. So all my towels are cleanly down there. So when we clean up this stuff later, like all this debris over here, it won't accidentally fall in there because we're gonna use a vacuum cleaner and vacuum all of this up top and even down in these cylinders later. So up here, you can see the gaskets right here. So these are the gaskets you're gonna want to change if you're gonna do this job. You're gonna want to put new gaskets in here. So the way we have this, you can still work on this. So you can still pull the gaskets out, down and out from here, and you can still pop your new gaskets in. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's get our old gaskets out, and then we're gonna pop our new gaskets in. And as far as the part down here, like I said, we're gonna clean this later before we get this here back on. This part right here is not mandatory. I'm gonna use a vacuum just to get all this other stuff off of here. So before I remove these rags, I'm gonna wipe the top clean so that while I'm wiping and cleaning my gasket surface, nothing can fall all the way down into the cylinders. You may get something that fall down on top of the rags, but once you pull the rag out, whatever it is should come out with the rag. Or if you want to be extra safe, after you wipe this down, you can come back with the vacuum cleaner again and vacuum anything that accidentally fell down in these holes. But you really just want to get this gasket surface clean. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want anything foreign to be laying on here when you put this down, because then it won't seal right. Okay, so see how easy that was. Now let's go ahead and get our bolts back in here. I'm gonna start with these two top bolts here. I'm not gonna get it all the way tight, just gonna get them in. Then I get these three at the bottom and then the two nuts at the corner. Right, so I'm gonna use my ratchet wrench and tighten these down by hand now. You don't want to over tighten these. Now remember, there was two bolts that went inside of these two here. Let's get those back in. There's two bolts that go on top of here. Let's get those in. Let's get this back up here. And then there's two 10mm bolts that go in the side of there too. And one right there. So there was a bolt that went up here and a bolt there, but there wasn't a bolt here for mine, so I'm not going to be able to put that one back in. It's not anything important, so I don't have to find a bolt for that. So if you remember, right back here, this piece here that goes right on here, so we can go ahead and put that back on. There was a 14mm bolt that went into here, so let's get that in there. So right here, there's two 10mm that go here to keep this down. So there wasn't any here for me, so I won't be able to put that in unless I find one, but for you, put those two back in. All right, let's undo our little wire here that's holding this together. And now we can put this back where it needs to be. This harness here, we're gonna plug that in. Right, this little plug, push that in there. There was a 10mm bolt that went into here to hold this in. So right here, there's this tube. I'm gonna put this back on here. This air breather tube. And if this is in your way, you can always move that 10mm and move this and then put it back. So down here, remember that bolt that was in here? You can go ahead and get that one back in. Right down here, we're gonna get our harness plug right back on here. So the good thing is we didn't remove the coolant lines from back here. So there's no reason to contort and try to get those back in. Right here, let's get this rubber hose back on. And hose clamps. And then use your pliers to squeeze that and put that back up there like that. This one here. So this one here, we gotta get this one back on. So I'm just using one hand to get this right now. All right, just like that, it's back on. Now let's get that hose clamp back. Hose clamp king. All right, we got that back on there. So let's go ahead and put this boot back on. the same exact way we got it out. So remember, this one here was a 10 millimeter, and this one here was a flathead or 8 millimeter. All right, and then get your negative battery terminal back reconnected, and that's it.